Good day, dear students, and welcome back to our English class. In the past two classes that we've had, we had started with this chapter called The Inspector of Schools, and we had seen that this is a story written by a Pakistani author, and it's a story set in a village in Pakistan. Although we can't really tell the difference because it seems like a very Indian setup, given the similarities between the two countries. Now, the story goes like this. There is a school inspector who has been asked to go and inspect a school in a village, and we are made aware of the fact that this is a very remote village. There aren't proper roads here. That is why the inspector has to park his jeep somewhere outside and then make his way to the school walking, right? Because there aren't proper roads in the village. It's largely an agrarian village, which means that there are a lot of farms around and or more like a lot of fields around, and people depend on these fields for their livelihood. So it's not very modern at all, and you can even doubt the fact whether how many people there are actually educated, right? So education is a remotely new concept in this particular village, and we see that the inspector has come around and he has trouble finding the school because the people of that village are not sure where the school is. Very soon it becomes clear to us that the reason why these people are not sure where the school is because the school keeps shifting. And it keeps shifting because there isn't one building or one room where the school is, because they don't have a building. Okay, so the teacher and the students move from one place to another. So one day they are under the shisham tree, the other day they are in some other field, and that is how the school goes on and the education thrives in that particular village, right? So finally we are told, I think we had stopped at where the inspector finally finds the school, and it is inside a sugarcane field in a clearing. There's a clearing after you cross the sugarcane field. Right in the middle there's a clearing, and that is where the school is. And the school is in such a bad state that there isn't even a sack mat for the students, in fact, to sit on. It's in a very bad condition. Okay, there's only one chair there. That chair belongs to the teacher, and there was a lot of description given about how bad or in what a poor condition that chair really is. It's broken multiple times. It's a rattan chair, but it has been nailed together and fixed together, and that chair is still standing, but we can all tell that it's pretty weak. Okay, but they keep going. It doesn't deter them. It does not stop them, right? And we also realize another thing, that there are about 40 students there, but they are not all one class. In fact, there are 6 different standards in that place at the same time, and there's just one teacher. And this teacher is teaching them 4 different subjects. So there's Urdu, there's Sums, there's English, and there's writing. 4 different subjects are being taught at the same time to these 6 different standards by one teacher. So how that's really going on is very difficult for us to understand as readers, but we know from what we see later on that the education is first class. Because when the inspector asks the student to read something and do a few sums, because he's inspecting the class, he is impressed because the children can read very well. Most of them manage to do the sums, and that is where we had stopped last. Okay, so I'll take it again from this line number 135. So we'll see what happens. The inspector of schools asked class 2 to do some sums. Most of the students got it right. A couple of students from class 1 recited the English alphabet without an error in the sing-song manner that helped them to learn by rote, swaying backwards and forwards rhythmically. Okay, so I think this is where we had stopped. So class 1 students were given the task of narrating or reading out the alphabet. So saying out, not reading out, but saying out the alphabets, and they managed to do that. And how they did it, how did they not make any mistake, was because they said it like a song. Okay, and while they were saying the alphabets, they also started moving. And I don't know how many of you recall it, but as children, this is how most of us used to say our tables as well as our alphabets, because that's how our teachers taught us. Okay, so their memory is good. Learning by rote simply means you're memorizing it. You don't really understand what you're learning, but you just memorize it. That is how early education at least takes place. So it's the same situation everywhere, and it's the same situation in this village as well, right? So they're singing it and they're moving while they sing, and they say it all correctly. A student from 6th class read out a nursery rhyme, Ba Ba Black Sheep. All of us have got this one. He began and ended in the same sing song manner. So you remember the tune of it. So he managed to read it from a textbook without making any mistake. If he knew it by heart, it was well done. If he was reading it from the book and he doubted this, it was even better. So now the inspector is wondering whether the student knew the nursery rhyme by heart or whether he was actually reading it. So either ways it is good, but it is better if the student is able to read it on his own. That is what the inspector thinks. But it is not clear to us whether the student said it by heart or whether he was actually reading it from the textbook. Then, in any case, the standard he had seen was far above that of primary schools under his jurisdiction. Now, this is the crucial part here. In his inspection, this is what he realized, because we had seen his past. We had seen how he is very upset at how teachers as well as students take education very lightly. That is what he had seen through his multiple inspections. But here, the standard that he sees is far above any of the other schools that he had inspected so far, which goes on to say that here in this very poor village where people are not even bothered about education, with the help of this one teacher and a few interested students, education is thriving. It is so successful, it is going forward so well that he is happy. The inspector for the first time is happy at his inspection. The reputation of the schoolmaster was well deserved. So if you remember at the start of the chapter, when the inspector asks somebody for the school, it is the peasant, in fact. The peasant starts talking and he says that the school inspector, not the school inspector, the master G, the school teacher, is a very hard-working man. That is what most people in that village believed. So now, when he sees the level, when the inspector sees the level for himself, he says that is true. What people are saying about him is very true, because he is actually a very hard-working man. Look at the kind of work that he is doing single-handedly here for these children. Okay, so whatever fame he has earned of a hard-working teacher is well deserved. He deserves it. Satisfied by the performance, the inspector of schools got up. So he was sitting on the chair, remember? So he got up. The chair creaked. The master was visibly buoyed. Okay. Now, buoyed usually means something that floats. Okay, mostly on water. But here we're not really talking about the master floating on water. We're talking about the master, that is the school teacher, was excited. Okay, he was happy that, because he could tell also that the inspector was impressed with the level that he finds here in the middle of the sugarcane field. Okay, so the master is also very happy that the inspection went on well, although it was a surprise inspection. Then, class, he says tan, but we know that he's trying to say stand. Class stand, shouted the monitor. His voice was louder than it had been earlier. Now, if you remember, even when the inspector came, the same monitor shouts the same two words, class stand. But this time, when the inspector is about to leave, out of respect, again he says the same, or he passes the same command. But this time his voice is even louder. And the reason why his voice is louder is because he is a lot more confident this time. Because all the students can also say, and they can also tell, that this inspector is very impressed by their performance and by their school. So they are very happy. They're very happy that the inspection has gone on well. The inspector of schools made to leave, so he was about to leave. Master followed stick in hand. The event would be talked about for days in their village and the next. Once out of the field, the inspector of schools relaxed. So finally they are moving out of the field, and everybody knows that it is such a big visit by a great person, an educated person into this village. So it will become an event that everyone talks about. So he knew this very well. The master knew this, the inspector also knew this, and anyway, so he makes to leave. He's finally coming out of the field through the same bushes that he went in. Now he comes out. Then we are told why do you keep shifting your school? Isn't there a room you could hire? So now it is the school inspector and the master G or the teacher. They are talking as students are still in the field, but they have moved out and they are walking towards the Jeep, right? So he's asking the school teacher, why do you keep shifting it? Because obviously he had a lot of trouble to find the school. So, and he says, can't you hire a room? And then the school teacher says, hire, Sergi? Well, get. Okay, because obviously you cannot, have a premises on rent when it comes to a school. You have to buy the place. Okay, because you can't keep spending money every month for the rent in order to have a school. Okay, so he says, are you talking about rent or hire? It's not possible, you know that, right? So the inspector says, yes, get it, buy it. Why can you not, have one fixed place? Either people donate it or whatever it is, but one fixed place. He says, no one will provide us a room, sahab. They don't want a school here. They've said this many times. They think the children are wasting their time, having fun when they should be gainfully employed, helping their fathers in the fields or tending the cattle. Now, this is the problem. The reason why they cannot have a room is because the people of that village are not interested in education. They believe that their children should help them in the fields or look after the cattle. Okay, so that is called gainfully employed in such a way that there is some sort of income from it or some sort of benefit from it. Okay, instead of going to school, they believe going to school is a waste of time. Imagine that. Okay, and like I told you, this is a village which is largely agrarian. Most people here are farmers. They've got fields, and we have seen that as well. So we are told that that is the problem. People here don't want the school. People of this village don't want the school. Then Chaudhry Ali Muhammad, the headman, is the only one who is kind to us, Sergi. He thinks education is very important. He can't give us a room or even a land for one. But he gave us his shisham shade all last season until the field was ploughed. This season we are using his sugarcane field. Now in this entire village there is only one sensible person, that is the village headman. Okay, he is Chaudhry Ali Muhammad, and he is the only person who understands that education is the future. And because he understands that, he has allowed the Master Ji to use the Shisham tree shade, because the Shisham tree belongs to the headman. Okay, he owns that land. So he allows, or he gives them that space, and also he gives them the field, the sugarcane field where the school is at present. It is his, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali's field. Okay, so that space, whichever space that the school gets, is only provided by the headman. The other people, they are not interested in the school, so they'll definitely not give the school any space. Okay, so that is why you can understand why they don't have a fixed place, because nobody is willing to donate the land, and nobody is willing to give them any space. The only person who gives them space, that person keeps changing it, because obviously he requires his land, right? Then of course the school inspector says it was good of him to clear the center of the field for you. So he says, okay, thank God at least one person is here. And he says it was very kind of the headman to clear the field in the middle and give that field to you. And this is when the teacher explained. He says, yes, Savji, it was good of him to let us clear the center. So this becomes very clear. It was good of him to let us clear the center. That means, yes, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali gave the field, but the clearing of the field, the work had to be done by the teacher and the students. That is the price they had to pay. It's explained a little further. Let's read that. The boys and I harvested his canes in that area, Sergi. It took us 3 days, even the ones in class 1, from 8 in the morning till sunset prayers. Then it was too dark. We made bundles, then loaded them onto Chaudhry's bullock cart. The Chaudhry said we must value education, and that was how we had to show it. Okay, so then we are told the master took off his white turban and showed the top of his head. In the middle of his hennaed hair was a bald patch. There were tears in his eyes. His voice went hoarse for a moment. Now, it seemed like Chaudhry Muhammad Ali was a saintly person because he gave them the shishan tree and he gave them the sugarcane field in order to conduct the classes. But now the Master Ji explains to us that it did not come free of cost. The children as well as the teacher had to pay a price for it. Yes, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali understood the value of education, but he was still going to charge them. And how did he charge them? He says, if you want to use the field, then you have to clear that field for me. I am not going to send separate workers to clear the field and pay them for it. You own the field, so you will have to clear it and you will have to use the land. So that is the price you have to pay for using my land. And that is why the students from the first standard till the sixth standard, from 8 o'clock in the morning till evening, for 3 full days, they worked and worked and worked, and they cleared the patch on their own. They took all the canes, they loaded it in Chaudhry's bullock cart, and that is how they earned that land for those few days, not forever, for those few days. And that is how they paid the price for that land, for their education. So it did not come easy. And then the Master Ji almost cries because remember, the Master Ji is not young, he's an old man. But even though he is old, he has so much of this desire to educate the children, that he is also willing to do hard work. Harvesting the canes is not an easy thing to do. It's mostly people who are used to working in the fields. For them also it's not easy, but at least they're used to it. People like him, people like children, they had to really struggle in order to clear the field for the classes, but yet they did it. So much they want to be educated, to learn, and to let the village get educated. That is the drive here. That is the will. How strong is their will? Especially the will of the master, because he could have given up. Nobody in the village is supporting him. The only person who is supporting him is also, putting conditions here. So it's easy for him to give up because he is educated. Why does he have to care about the children? But he's not like that. He's very hardworking and he's selfless, like a true teacher. And that is why he is ready to do anything in order to educate these children. And from what we have seen earlier, he's doing a very good job out of it as well. Okay, the education is top class here. Then, but here he's crying and he tells the inspector something. He says, I have lost my hair carrying those bundles. He put the turban back and looked away. They kept walking. Now remember, he's a man. He's not used to crying, as often, especially as a teacher. He's not used to being so weak and crying, that in front of a school inspector. But yet he cries here because it just tells you how hard his journey has been, how difficult. Okay, he has suffered a lot. Not just in terms of the health, but his appearance. And he says, my hair, I've even lost my hair. There's a bald patch on my head. That much, the strain of it, the stress of this entire experience, that much I have suffered in order to educate these children. Okay, but the question is, why is he telling all of this to the school inspector? Let's read on further. They are told, he put the turban back on and looked away. They kept walking. The inspector of schools on the path and the master appropriately a little lower, awkwardly in the field beside him. So the inspector was in front, they kept walking, and out of respect, the master did not walk alongside him, he walks a little at the back. Okay, and awkwardly he's trying to follow the master, but they are still conversing, they are still talking. Then we are told, Sabji, if only we had a room, just one room. He spoke quietly. If not a room, a plot of land. The boys and I could build it. It would take a whole season, Sirji, but we could do it. Now you can understand why he is opening up about how difficult the journey has been. He has only one request to the inspector of schools. He says, please give us at least a room. If a room is too much to ask, give us a small piece of land and we will build the room. My small children, the students, from the first standard till the sixth standard, imagine how small they are. But them and me, together we will build our school. But please give us a land because this is too much. We have to keep struggling in order to find a place for our education to continue. And for some reason, we are told that although he has made a very strong and very valid request, the inspector of schools walked silently on. The inspector of school, he doesn't say anything, and he doesn't even stop to listen to the teacher. He continues to walk, which is a little odd. We can't understand what is going on here. Let's read on further. The teacher continues to talk. He says, I know a plot is an expensive proposition, Sergi, and nobody wants a school anyway. But I don't mind a plot anywhere. There is some land in the menial section of the village. I would be quite happy, Sergi, to take my school there. Some land is better than, and then he is just trying to go on further with that whole idea of the land. He says, I know that asking for a land it's a very expensive proposition. It's a very expensive suggestion, or a proposal that I'm making to you, okay? Because it will cost a lot. But he says, you can give me a land anyway. I'm not looking for a very good area as such. Any land, even land which is from the menial section of the village. Menial section will be where the lower caste people would live. Now we're talking about India after partition or after independence, and a caste system was still very strong. Okay, so there is a separate area where the higher caste people stay, and then there's a separate area where the low caste people stay. So the school teacher says, I don't care about which area it is. Even if you give me a place in where the menials of the village stay, where the people of the lower caste stay, I'll take a land from there also. I'm not particular. I'm an educated man, and I'm above all these things. So just give us a land. That's all we need in order to take that school there. We will build a school on our own. But land is the basic requirement. Now again we are told the inspector of schools was silent. Already he could see the proposal rejected. The government gave no land or building for a primary school. The locals must provide that. So why should it change now? A rule is a rule. Now you can understand very clearly why the inspector of schools was quiet here. He knew that yes, what the school teacher was making was a very sincere and a very valid request, but it was not in his power to give that land. He could not do it because the rule of the government was that whichever village wishes to start a school, that village has to provide the land for that school. The government cannot provide it. The government can build the school, the government can pay the teachers, but the land for the school has to be provided by the village. Okay, so that rule was already in place, which means that he knows he cannot do anything about it. And here, in this case, it's a slightly hopeless situation because nobody in this village wishes that education should continue. So why will they give the land for the school? Okay, so all the locals must provide that land. So he says, the rule will not change. The government is not going to make a change in its rule and suddenly buy land for this particular schoolmaster and his children. A rule is a rule. It's the same for everyone. So he says, and there were so many rules that had been followed for a century now. Independence did not make a difference. What was good then was good now. So he says, some of these rules were so outdated, but still they continued to be followed even after independence. And nothing had changed. The same, you can say almost ineffective rules continue. Besides all these financial cuts, he could hear it all. He sighed. One little plot, that was all. And how many masters were as dedicated as him? How many really cared, could face such indifference? So the inspector of schools here is facing a sort of a conflict within him. He knows that this master and these students are sincere, they are honest, they are working so hard in order to let their education continue. And it's there are good results as well. The quality is good there. But at the same time, they don't have the facilities. Okay, so he's just thinking, can I really do anything about this? Even if I do, make a very humble and honest appeal to the government, he knows that it will be rejected. Here we are told, besides all the financial cuts, there are other expenses as well. It's not just a school and the plot. You have to have electricity there. You've got to have benches there. You have to have teachers there, you have to have washrooms, there's so many different other facilities. So all of it costs money. So the government is definitely not going to invest in a place like this. But at the same time, he feels so sorry for this teacher because, and especially as a school inspector, because he says how many people and how many teachers are really as dedicated and as sincere as this teacher. How many really care about education the way this teacher cares? Okay, and this teacher has continued with so much of indifference means people are simply not bothered. Who are these people, the same parents of these same children of that village, they are not bothered. Yet this man has continued. He's got no support whatsoever except from the village head, but other than that, no support whatsoever. Okay, but despite that, he continues. So says this man really deserves something, some facility. But can I really do it? He knows that the answer is no. So he feels a little torn here. And then we are told he couldn't recall one in all 3 years. So he tries to think of any other teacher that he had seen and inspected who was as good as this particular village teacher. So we are told that he could not remember even a single teacher who was as dedicated as this teacher. So he got into his jeep, acknowledged the fawning salam of the master with a slight gesture and drove away. He could not meet the man's eyes. So the master gives a fawning salam, slightly exaggerated, means he uses all of his energy and out of all of his respect, he gives a salam to the inspector of schools. And also remember that he is still hoping that the inspector of schools will comply with his request and give him that piece of land that he has asked for. He doesn't know the truth. The master, the school teacher, he still doesn't know the truth. But the inspector of schools already knows that he can do nothing about the situation. So, and that is why we are told this last sentence here, he could not meet the man's eye. The inspector of schools could not look at the teacher's eyes because he knew that he had let down the teacher. He knew that there was, although he was the big school inspector, he could do nothing to help the teacher. Although he really wanted it also. He really wanted to help, but there was nothing that he could do, nothing in his power that he could do. So he feels guilty and he feels ashamed of the fact that despite being the school inspector and despite wanting to help, there's nothing he can do because the system itself is bad. The system itself makes no provision to help situations like these. Okay? And that is where the story ends. Now, I remember when we started off this lesson, I had told you that this story is particularly important and it is particularly relevant given our situation of online classes and the COVID pandemic. The reason why I said that is because so many of us are finding this whole experience of online classes so difficult. Traveling becomes too much, or sometimes the internet connection is not all right, or sometimes the timings of the classes is not fine. So many different difficulties, and they're all. It makes a lot of sense. Those are genuine problems. They are genuine difficulties, but there are also those students who they take advantage of situations like these and say things like they make up stories that their internet has not been working, or multiple different stories, and that is how they take this whole process or this whole concept of education for granted. There are some of you who are very hardworking and still very sincere, but most of you take it for granted. Okay, and here there is a teacher and there are these 40 students who don't even have a room, who don't even have a proper land, and look at the will that they have to educate themselves and to do something out of their lives. Their situation is probably worse than the situation that we are all in right now. But look at the determination, look at the willpower that these people have and how they refuse to give up. With tears in their eyes, with a lot of body aches, after all the cleaning up that they had to do, they still come to class the next day and the education continues and they study well. They don't simply come just for the heck of it. They're there and they're really learning. The learning is thriving right there. So that gives us something to think about. Where there is a will, there is definitely a way. This is it for today's class. We will stop right here.